You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, it is Friday the 5th of July. 2024. Welcome to the Diary of a Wannabe Writer. Did have a few days off. I did say I was going to, so I don't feel bad about it. As I was saying, I was just flying around Europe for work, and they're long days, and I wasn't going to get any. I was too tired to do any writing, so all I was literally going to do each night was say why I hadn't written and tell you where I might fly the next day. So I think it was the right decision, but I'm back home now. So we finished the tour yesterday morning. My original plan, that was Thursday morning, my original plan was to drive home, have a few hours sleep, and then stay up all night and watch the election coverage. And my actual original thought for this podcast was to actually record my thoughts at key moments during the election coverage, when the exit poll came out, when the first seat was announced, and so on, and just record little snapshots and edit it together, and it's my thoughts live on the evening. But because I hadn't managed to sleep during the day as I planned to, I ended up having to sleep at night. So I did watch the first bit. So I watched, obviously, the exit poll come out, and I watched the sort of mild flurry of results coming in from the Sunderland area, because they always seem to be the first ones to deliver the results of their counts. And it was enough to kind of prove that the exit poll was certainly vaguely correct. But there's a couple of interesting things happened. So the first one is, obviously, we've got a massive Labour majority. I don't think I expected it to be that big, if I'm honest. The second thing that surprised me is how few seats the Reform Party got. I'm glad, because I think they're awful, but they were predicting in the exit polls they might get 13 seats, and I think they ended up with 4 or 5. I haven't seen the final figure for them, but it's not as many as the exit poll suggested. Obviously, Nigel Farage is now an MP, and I bloody well hope he looks after his constituents, because ultimately that's what he's there to do. He's their Member of Parliament, so it'll be interesting to see if he's actually any good as an MP or not. My hunch says that he won't be, but I could be completely wrong. The guy may have more integrity than I thought. No. So yeah, how they got a very big, and this is one of the problems with our system. The first past the post system means that someone can get, what do they get, something like 24% of the votes and only get a certain number of seats. And I think the Tories actually got less of a percentage of votes than them, but more seats, which is a flaw in the system, unfortunately. And in my heart, I feel we should have some kind of proportional representation system, but there's no way the Labour Party, who have benefited from 42% of the votes, and ended up with 412 out of 650 seats. So 42% of the votes and nearly 2/3 of the seats. So, neither the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, who realistically are the only ones that are going to get into power, neither of them are going to go to proportional representation, because it would disadvantage them. So although people will call for it, and I'm sure Reform will call for it, it's not going to happen. So yes, the other interesting thing was quite how badly the Scottish National Party did north of the border. So they went from 39 MPs to 9 MPs. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of issues with Nicola Sturgeon's husband, and then, the next party leader, I can't even remember his name. Was it Hamza Yusuf? Having to resign. Yeah, it's been an absolute, pardon the language, absolute shit show north of the border for the Scottish National Party. And you can't help but feel in the short term it has definitely damaged the prospect of another independence referendum, and therefore the chances of that actually happening. Of course, the real proof of the pudding will be, because there are two bodies that sit and govern Scotland. So they've only got a quarter of the seats they had before in the Westminster election, but of course then there's the Scottish Parliament elections, and I can't remember when they said those were, but I think they're a couple of years away. So you won't really be able to say conclusively that independence is off the agenda until we see how the Scottish National Party do in the Scottish parliamentary elections. So, there's all the pundits going, this is clearly a vote to say that they don't want independence. I don't think you can say that at all. This was about getting rid of the Tories, I think. I don't think the Scottish vote was, actually. I think it's more complicated up there, so I don't really understand why that's happened. But the other thing that's really interesting is we've suddenly gone from a handful, was it 12 at the last? So there were 8 or 9 Liberal Democrats at the last election. By-elections have given them a few more since the last general election. And now they've got 71, and they could even have 72, because one of the constituencies that hasn't declared yet, I reckon, is probably very close between the Scottish National Party and the Liberal Democrats. And I really hope the Liberal Democrats win that, because that gives them, 72nd, 73rd seat, and won't give the SNP the 10th. Anyway, so that's all very interesting, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens. Now the Reform Party do have a tiny voice, they can claim some legitimacy because they have a few MPs. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting few years. Will Keir Starmer be able to bring people together? Because the Labour Party isn't as divided as the Conservatives, but it is fairly divided between, like the Conservatives are divided between the sort of far right lot and the more centrist lot. I think the same is true of the Labour Party in terms of the left wing and the more centrist. So I think initially there will be a honeymoon period, and I don't think anyone will cause trouble for Starmer, but then it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And the fact that, Jeremy Corbyn, standing as an independent, won his seat, absolutely, so as did, I believe, Diane Abbott. I can't remember her. I don't remember her losing a seat, although I haven't seen the result, but I think Diane Abbott won hers as well. So that kind of says that there are still issues within the Labour Party which they're going to have to overcome to do the things they need to do. But so it's all very, very interesting time. So I probably I'm very, very tired today, so I've just had 5 long days of work. I'm not going to be doing any writing today. Hopefully we'll do some tomorrow though. And then I've got a single day at work after that, followed by another day off, followed by a trip to, where am I going? Sao Paulo in Brazil, which I've never been to before, so I'm looking forward to that. And we get a couple of days there, so I should be able to do some writing when I'm there. So yeah, that's where I am. Obviously not heard anything back yet from any of the agencies that I've submitted my book to. There is one that I think what says that they like to let you know within 30 days. So I would say about half the time has elapsed, roughly. I think it's been 2 weeks since I submitted it. So the fact that I haven't heard anything isn't worrying me. But in another 2 weeks, or just over 2 weeks, I'll be able to draw some conclusions from one of the agencies, because they do say they'll try and get back to you within 30 days. But then the others say 16 weeks, so it's still got a bit of time to wait. So no news is not necessarily bad news for any of them. Anyway, that'll do me for today. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. I will probably record tomorrow's podcast during a live stream. But so take care. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back tomorrow and actually be doing some writing, hopefully. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my Linktree at linktr.ee/Richard Writes, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.